Africa entities and the innovative young people coming up with solutions in a bid to make life more convenient and, of course, to make a profit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of News Central Debrief, where we are honored to have two phenomenal guests with me in studio. I'll start with you. This is Ogugua Belombu, who's a Faro Olulade, who is a business strategist.
Hello, Africa.
So, hello, Africa. I love that. Yeah. Welcome. And so let's get showed that in 2018, 146 African startups raised a total of $1.163 billion US. Now, 80% of those deals were concentrated in Million Club of fundraising for Africa. Straight off the bat of this, I think the first thing we need to talk about is the definition of a startup. And you know, I said that to you earlier when I was asking, is your business a startup? Because I find that in Africa, we've blurred the line between a startup and a small business or a new business, small new business.
A startup, basically, it's just a word that just came up, especially with tech. Really, every small business is starting up. Yeah. So I would like market fit, become stable, and become a lot more organized. Okay. I think that stage is what I call the startup.
And there's always the element of scaling up quickly. Yes. When they say that a startup is a new business that has the potential to scale up very quickly. Bolara, why do you think that this clause, shall I say, those are startups? Is it that the potential is there? Or is it that we're not scaling, not enough businesses are scaling up so quickly?
There is this thing called the law of division of innovation that says for you to have a mass market acceptance of any product. So if your product is such that you're not able to get to that point where 18% of your total market size is, you can't tip and then have market acceptance. And also to scale, you need funding. Yeah. And whoever is going to put money in the business needs to be convinced that that product is a product culture. You know, to be able to ensure that whatever you're doing can last for a long time and not just a flash in the pan that works for 1 year, works for 2 years, and then it's been challenging for African startups. And unfortunately, we don't have we were talking earlier about what do African startups need.
Just facing
yes, because
African
we haven't had so many successes. I mean, you can have mentors when people have gone through. They've been there. That you should scale rapidly. Be very mindful of scaling because growth has challenges, and when you grow too quickly, you then begin to have quality issues. Those are the things that we need to consider before we then say, okay, we want to scale and then have mass market acceptance.
Well-known nuances of doing business, whether you're, a startup or whether you're an established business. There's some factors that we all face. But let's look at the ones that are unique to startups and some of the things that you encountered and you felt that, well, in the world, I wouldn't have to struggle with this.
Okay, basically, my job mag is operating in the career space. So, and you know that a lot is happening outside Africa. So if you're playing in Africa, the first thing is I have to slow down. Because sometimes when you become what do they really need? So you start solving the basic problems. So in all your meetings, in all your jobs, you won't come and tell them, oh, come and do video interviews, come and do this. This is the next big thing. Environments where you're basically constrained. People can't afford to spend the money they use for food or transportation on data for the videoing, but not too fast.
So, as a business strategist, is this something that you see translates into the fact that fintech is probably the most? Because I would like to think that, you look at PiggyVest, you look at some of the businesses that are receiving funding, and they don't seem as basic as we would like to refer to the African market as. So how do you take this kind of like balance between innovation and being able to stay at par with your market?
So it's providing, like you mentioned, it's providing services that people need. So apart from fintech, another group of startups that have really been, I don't want to say fortunate, they've worked hard to get to wherever they got to receive funding. You find people that are doing energy, powering, remote places that typically don't have access to the grid. So if you're providing a solution that yes, it's a solution, but at the same time has a social dimension to it, then you find that such receive funding very, very quickly.
Okay.
I mean, there was a particular solar, power-based business that got 9 million recently, and I mean, the first news that I heard about them was the fact that they got 9 million funding.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything prior to that.
Yeah.
So, and of course, fintech, people need to transact businesses. Even somebody that doesn't have a bank account, for example, wants to transact businesses. So, because fintech, they do more than that, but the fact that they make transactions a lot easier, yes, there has been that focus.
It's useful.
But I've also seen a particular group of startups that have received funding basically because they're providing solutions, and in that solution you have a social element to it.
Right.
So I've also seen that gain traction. So you need to be very, very sure of what you are providing solutions for.
Right.
Founders in quote are engineers in by design. They want to design things. They want to come up with solutions. However, there are times that they are inventing problems. And
they're trying to solution.
They're trying to solve. So they're trying to solve their own problems and not looking at the problems that the market is facing and trying to address that. So in coming out, you need to be sure what you're addressing, and is there a market for it? Because at the point, like we were saying, talking about scaling, at the point where you want to scale, all of those questions will then come back. And if you're not able to provide good answers, then you won't be able to.
Let's focus on funding, especially when you look at kind of, playing between venture capitalists and bootstrapping and how you're raising your money. And, we talk about problem solving, like you said, problems with a social context or, social element to them. But then you look at the behavior of most venture capitalists, as we've seen them, the trend that it is, which is really whether you're providing a solution or whatever it is you're doing, it's really about, can this thing make money very quickly, and how fast can we sell the concept of it and exit out of this. So how much do you think we need to balance between finding solutions and actually just being young people who want to make money? Because at the end of the day, everybody, it's business at the end of the day. So how much sentiment should we really put into this? Because ultimately, if a venture capitalist is going to come scale you up, be a Jumia, they take you to the New York Stock Exchange, everybody gets their money and everybody moves on.
Yeah.
So one thing I always say is money is not bad. So access to funding is something very good, right? However, see funding from a team perspective, like someone funding you, a VC, it's part of your team. So while hiring
for that period,
for that period. So while hiring, you look for people with the right elements. So look for those elements in your VCs too. So whether you get funding at day 0 or you get funding at day 365 or day 3650, so far that the people funding are the right people that understand what you're doing, what you want to do, and maybe they've played in the same industry, I'm sure you get it right.
So it doesn't matter that, if they join you on day 365, as you said, and they take you to a certain level, and on day 500 they realize that actually this has been a nice journey, let's sell out, you continue on your own as you were. There's no conflict. I mean, isn't this what's kind of leaving most African startups in a space where they're unable to move on beyond a certain stage?
Okay, so when you're actually, I think it's always good anyway for you to bootstrap first, at least run for a couple of months or a year. However, when you have someone saying, oh, I have the money, take this money, and you look at the person's profile, you understand him or her, the VC, and you think that, oh, this person really understands what we are doing. This person is the right partner to have for the business. Definitely, there must be pressure, but it will be good pressure at the end of the day.
Okay.
So it becomes a problem when you're just looking at the money. Oh, I need money, give me money, and you collect money and they fire you, and so it's about taking the VC as part of your team.
And
am I sure?
To get
yes. Forget about the money. Am I sure I want this team member to start with?
Okay, we're going to continue this. We just want to take a quick look at what the government's role in encouraging startups. And this is an interview with the founder of Imisi 3D. Imisi 3D is an extended reality creation lab, and the founder talks about how government can make the climate more friendly for startups like hers.
One of the things we wanted to do was to build an all-in-one solar-powered headset, because we wanted to build a device that was tailored to the local environment. But even kind of like in the design stage, we got a little bit stuck. But we know that there's a lot of potential with things like additive manufacturing, 3D printing, etc., that we can start to really do R&D around these things. But there has to be support for research and development. You know what I mean? I mean, if the government could even assist in creating spaces so that people who want to, be part of a maker community or try out manufacturing can do so, prototyping. I don't think that we see a lot of that around. What's great is that we have kind of like a number of initiatives and hubs and all of that are starting to support, from things like ideation, kind of like right through to incubation, acceleration and all of that. I think more is what I would always say, more. People sometimes say, oh, maybe there are not enough startups focused in this area or that area. The same way we sometimes worry about, the amounts of good developers we have. But I think one thing is that if we have critical mass, then you will always find quality, right? So the more we can encourage in terms of growth, in terms of really building foundations so we can build up quality, the better.
Hello everybody and welcome back. I am Vimbai and you are tuned into the News Central Debrief. On a Friday, we are talking about why African startups fail. Been a very engaging conversation so far. So before the break, we were talking about choosing the right partners, especially when looking at venture capitalists. It's, you shouldn't just see, this is your advice, don't just see the money dangled at you and run with it. But let's look at some other partnerships that may not work out as expected. So we look at Pre-Up, for example, who depended highly on telcos for their business model to work. And ultimately that became a strained relationship, and they were unable to draw out the kind of profit margins that they possibly could have made had there been a better balance. So what are some of the things or some of the red flags that startups should look out for when choosing these partnerships, even if these are people coming with money, people coming with services that your business model is dependent on? How does one navigate strategically? How do we navigate through those choices?
I think what is important is alignment. There needs to be alignment of purpose. So whoever, don't be in a hurry to collect money, because that could end up.
See, it's very hard to tell.
It is. But ultimately, because I was reading up on some startup, and it was a family member that actually led to the demise of the startup. The family member put money, and then when it was time to scale, the family member just wasn't ready to partner with anybody, and that was the end of it. So don't be in a hurry. There has to be alignment of purpose. If whatever you're trying to do, you need to sort of read beyond, whatever offer you are being given. You have to be sensible, be patient, and ensure that there's alignment of purpose. Once there is alignment of purpose, even if it's taking longer to obtain the returns that the investor is, because there is alignment of purpose, it becomes a bit more difficult to say, we are exiting, and then whatever happens. So that needs to be, it's not.
Because I've also seen a lot of people pass up what potentially could have been brilliant opportunities after, overvaluing their business or their value proposition. So you just wonder, where does one draw the line? Is this where instinct and intuition come in? Or is there an actual equation that says that this is who you go with?
That still goes back to alignment of purpose and vision. So why do you want a startup? Are you seeing that as a means to make money? If you're seeing that as a means to make money, then you could have
most people. Most people are going into business to make money.
Yes, but that
you're smart. Why are you laughing? Why do you find that funny? Sorry, I just want to get you to interject.
Basically, we are playing in an environment where most startups you even see, where most of them are all driven by money. So you have high rate of unemployment. When the person stays at home, not earning much, the person will just turn to a startup founder.
Comes an inventor.
You said it. You shake the table. Let's shake it well. Because everybody is a founder of a startup now.
Yes, it is. As much as yes, that could be, but there's also the positive aspect because it's then giving opportunities to people, to expand their minds, look to solve problems.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, your major focus shouldn't be, I want to make money. I mean, the biggest companies that have existed they didn't start out to want to make money. They started out to want to solve a problem. I mean, Steve Jobs would say, you know what, the reason why we exist is because we believe that things should not go a certain way. We want to do it differently.
Let's bring that conversation home with one of our more prominent startup founders who identified the problem as the Africans wanting to consume African content from outside of home, outside the continent. That's Jason Njoku, when he founded Iroko, and he's very vocal about startups, and he's had his own highs and lows, so he often shares insight. So we're going to take a look at this tweet from Jason Njoku, which says, "As grateful and fortunate as I am for the opportunity with Iroko TV, I'll probably never start or run a venture-backed startup again. My emotions can't handle it. Most startups have an unfamiliar message for venture capitalists. Get lost." So he had his highs and lows, and when he needed funding the most, unfortunately, is when his venture capitalists were getting ready to claim their payday and call it a day. But let's compare this to a Jumia, for example, and Jumia is perceived, I use the word perceived very carefully, as being one of the most successful African startup stories. So, what did Jumia get right that an Iroko TV, for example, was unable to get right?
Okay, so basically, let me talk about the tweet. That sentence says probably. So it's possible he will start his next startup and still take funding.
You're very pragmatic, I have to say.
So let's not take the statement hook, line, and sinker. However, talking about Jumia, I strongly think that the founders, they had a passion for the idea. They really wanted to do something great in that space. That's number one. Then secondly, they had people that really wanted to do it with them. So in line with what you said about alignment, really. So it's about they had the right founders that have been willing to go the mile, cross the seas and mountains with them, really. So I may not have the details on the different terms they had or they are still having.
And how things got sketchy along the way.
Yes. However, I think that, as I said earlier, funding is good if you have the right people funding you. And driven by passion too.
Okay, because earlier you did allude to the fact that there are a lot of quote unquote startup founders now on the African continent, which chimes into what Jason is saying, is that, well, it seems that Africa has become a very fertile ground for people who have the money to throw around, who are looking for fantastic ideas and know that they can exit very quickly, make a very quick profit. And this is what the founders of the German brothers behind Jumia have been accused of, not just with Jumia, but globally, because they run a business model that replicates successful digital startups, and they take it to stock exchange and they sell it off for their own profit. So, you look at Andela, for example, where Andela faces the controversy of the fact that, well, all they're doing is they're getting money to train Africans and sending Africans out to quote unquote to be slaves. They said, people say, what's the difference between this and the slave trade? We're shipping off our people to, when you sit in tech circles, these are the conversations. So I just want to say, what about development? We're raising money for our individual businesses and so forth, but what now happens to the African terrain as a whole when these venture capitalists or investors are coming from wherever they are coming from, and then at the end of the day, they're still taking their profits and taking them home. They don't care whether we built schools or whether we impacted XYZ families. Jumia, for example, is reported to have never made a profit. So how is this our, shall I say, most iconic startup story? I'll send it to you.
So you touched on two different issues.
I did, yes.
So when we are strictly talking about development and, social development, the government is really responsible for that. For as long as you're paying taxes, the government is responsible for that. But at the same time, the ultimate goal of any venture capitalist is to make returns on their investment. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. It's not because the truth
by
also
any means
is,
necessary.
Yeah, it's not for free, and they are taking a risk, and that risk has a cost to it. Especially when you are taking a risk in Africa, where you have a lot of uncertainties.
Yes.
As to a government could take over and then say, you know what?
It's not a level playing field.
Yes, it's nationalizing all companies.
Instability, as they like to
somebody
put it.
could take over and say, I'm nationalizing all companies, and then you lose your money. So, I mean.
So you think the high risk is worth the potential of a high reward?
Yes. So that's what they are looking at, and I would say if your business model is fantastic and can deliver value, right? And if you've had a VC stay with you for 5 years, you would have created some measure of value in those 5 years. And even when they exit, you may find somebody else who is interested. If your business model, for me, it's about business model. It's about business model. I mean, you touched on Jumia and Iroko TV.
Yeah.
Jumia business model, I will have to lobby Jumia to bring my stuff to be displayed on Jumia. And then Jumia sells, and then Jumia holds the money, and then pays me. But Iroko TV needs to develop content. It's that you develop content or you buy content, and
very different business.
So
models,
very different business model.
Okay, so I need to cut you short because we're running, we're quickly running out of time. We've touched a lot of kind of the difficulties, the complexities, almost the negative connotations. I just want to round up on a positive note, optimistic note. What are some of the things you love most about the African startup scene?
Okay, so I love the drive. Young people pushing with so much energy against all odds. You have the power issue and stuff, but you have young people out there wanting to do it, bootstrapping their way through. So that energy in Africa, it's something that is beautiful. So I want us to keep pushing against all odds. While we don't wait for VCs to come to develop our country, we have the work to do in-house to build Africa, to build our nation.
It's up to us, right? Valara, as a business strategist.
For me, it gives people a sense of purpose. And for me, that's quite important. I mean, people that work in traditional industries, banking, oil and gas, manufacturing, I wouldn't say some are just earning their pay.
So these are
just putting food on the table. But when you are doing startup, it gives you a sense of purpose. I mean, I'm useful here. I'm not just wasting oxygen.
Okay.
So for me, I think that's what I like the most about startups. It gives you purpose.
Gives you purpose, makes you useful, beautiful drive. So, even with all the ups and downs, this is Africa, still incredible opportunities. And we hope that with minds such as yours, we'll be able to put your wisdom back into the system and get more of these startups to cross the J-curve, if I might call it that. Thank you so much for your time. I wish we could speak for a little bit longer. Unfortunately, our time is fast spent. Well, there you have it. It's been News Central's Debrief. Remember, we're here every single Friday at 1 p.m. to bring you some of the most talked about and most topical issues as we digest them and we break them down. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Vimbai.
Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Vimbai Mutiniri. You're watching News Central TV. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking right here.